Good morning. Good morning. Morning, Camille. So I know it's right at 10, actually 10:01. And I honestly am not expecting a lot of people to join, but I'm glad that you all did. Hey, Missy. Hey, Kara. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have it down that this would take 2 hours. I could actually spend all day on it. I won't. I probably won't take up the 2 hours. But really, where this came about, I'm a doctoral student at the University of the Cumberlands, and I was asked last year if I would be part of a trauma-informed education cohort through the University of Kentucky. I agreed, and my mind and my experiences have just been eye-opening ever since. I knew students had trauma. I've known that people around me have had trauma. I myself have grown up with trauma, but I never put it all together. And to me, this training really has helped me to put it all together. So I want to share that with you. And then at the end, I've put a link to a survey. That is actually my doctoral research. There are a lot of questions, and I do apologize. But what that will tell me is my belief is that from the training, if teachers or any staff member in the building, because this is open to janitors, administrative assistants, people at the district office, open to everybody, so that when they are exposed to a trauma professional development, their ideas or their dispositions towards trauma-informed education will have a positive impact. It will change. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can you all see where it says making it count? Okay, now I will, little intro there. My name is Justin Arnold. Yes, Kara, I love it. It's going to change education. It's already started. And if we just get more people on board, I strongly believe this is a turning point. I do have my specialist degree in administration, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate at the University of the Cumberlands. So the goals of this training is to identify the effects of trauma and recognize the symptoms of traumatic stress in children and adolescents, learn to recognize the possible effects of trauma on student behavior and how to increase the psychological safety of students, learn about self-regulation and coping strategies for youth, and learn about the core principles of a trauma-sensitive approach. Self-care alert. This is always important when talking about trauma. If things get a little rough, step out and take a break. Talk to someone that you trust about what you have seen in the presentation today, and just do something relaxing. Just keep yourself in mind. We are talking about trauma. It can be heavy at times. Moving on. So we're going to start with the anatomy of a traumatic experience. So a trauma-informed system will understand the trauma awareness. It'll integrate the understanding into action through policies and procedures. So that's where we come in. And then understand our roles and work collaboratively with others. Promote safety, trust, choice, empowerment, collaboration, and cultural competency in all aspects of service delivery. So, what is a traumatic event? It is witnessing or experiencing an event that poses a real or perceived threat of death, serious injury, or sexual violation. It is unique for each individual based on their experience and the perception of the event. And I would like to make this interactive. So can someone tell me what sticks out to you as far as the definition? There's one word that stuck out to me, and I think it's something that we must keep in mind anytime we're working with students. It's in the first little bit there. Anyone have any idea what it is? Yes, real or perceived. Yes, Camille, that is the one that stuck out to me as well. Witnessing, yes, and the threat is definitely there. The perceived sticks out to me because we don't know what the students are going through, really. We can hear about it, we can look at their files, things like that. But it could be harmless to us as a teacher, like to where we see something or we hear about something, and we're like, well, that's not really what was going on or how they really felt. But if to that student or to that child, it was a perceived threat of death, serious injury, or sexual violation, it's trauma. It's a traumatic experience. And we have to remember that, and we have to work with that appropriately. This first video, has anyone seen this short clip? Okay, I am going to, self-care alert is a must. And that's all I'm going to say, but just keep that in mind. Can everyone hear that? This is my first experience. Wow. Awesome. Okay. I say if you've done really any trauma training, this video is normally shown, and it's impactful. Here we go.
Sometimes someone hurts you so bad.
I don't think you understand me.
It stops hurting at all. Until something makes you feel again. And then it all comes back. Every word. Every hurt. Every moment. How could you ever understand where I come from? Even if you ask, even if you listen, you do not really hear or see or feel. You don't remember my story. You haven't walked my path. You haven't seen what I've seen. My past defines me. This is who I am. I am unseen, unheard, unwanted. That is what I am, if even I am anything. It seemed like the same thing that held me up forced me down. And the world turned upside down, and order disappeared. Nothing was how it was supposed to be. And a heavy sadness filled my soul. Deeper and deeper I fell within myself. And nothing could draw me out. Trapped in the misery of my life. Lost in the sorrow of my soul. Unable to see the light. unable to see the dawn. To feel, to hope,
What are you doing picking my fruit?
to dream. And I found the darkest days of my life kept coming. The blackest nights for my soul never stopped. It seemed like it was always nighttime and nightmares and never morning. And maybe you wonder why, but mostly you try not to think about it and try to get by and try to survive. And all the other stuff seems so much like nothing compared to just wanting the most important things back again. Like wishing you could see your mama's smile again and hear her sing that one favorite song that always calmed you down when things were all messed up. Or if you couldn't have her back, at least get to take care of your baby brother. 'Cause you know he needs you, and he's gonna be so scared all alone. And who's gonna hold his hand and whisper it'll be all right to him? And who will whisper it to me?
To have you here. Are you ready to come in?
I know I am helpless, dependent, desperate. But what happens when those you need the most threaten your very existence? I've heard plenty of promises, and they all sound the same. But push hard enough, and sooner or later, they all prove to be empty. The sun comes up every morning, but do you know where? Each place it's somewhere different. It's hard to find east when you keep moving around, but at least it comes. It always comes. I've come to depend on that. And slowly seasons changed around me. And it seemed this time that maybe the world would not be pulled out from under me again. Feet safe, roots starting to grow, little buds of hope forming, slowly attempting to trust this new life.
Hey, come on over. Let me show you what I got for you. Got you a gift.
I don't care about your dress. You think I care about this dress? I don't think you understand me, do you? I don't think you understand me.
I wish someone would tell me it's gonna be
Every
okay.
time I come home, I swear to God you touch me again, I will kill you.
Touch me! I don't care about that one day, maybe, I feel normal. That I won't always be alone. That I'll have a mommy who will hug me and be strong for me. Because maybe I can't do it all by myself.
Hi, yes. I'm calling to let you guys know that I have room for another placement. Thank you so much. Yes. The daughter. Okay, I think she'll be in the back.
This, my past, my history, my story, is not my fault. It's not because of me. And doesn't have to be what defines my future. I am lovable. I am worthy of care. And that glimmer of light, it makes all the difference. The glimmers of light give me hope that someday my summer will come.
Okay, so process that for a second. What are some thoughts? Please feel free to turn your cameras on. You can use the mic. You can use the chat. Yes, Kara. It is very eye-opening. Every time I've watched this video, it's affected me in different ways. What are some other thoughts? Or has anyone maybe met a Zoe? I understand that, Camille. Yes. Yes, Missy. Behaviors being displayed, often misunderstood without knowing the root cause. The foster mother with the dress, she was, she thought she would do a nice thing and get her a dress. And she had no idea that that was one of her traumatic reminders. Yeah, the foster mother did not know. Help me understand more what my families are going through. Yes, I agree, Kara, especially with your position. You are like a vital link to families. And it's just so important what you do. So I do thank you and commend you as well. Okay, let's keep moving. There are more films that talk about Zoe, but we're not going to get into them today. I do talk about them more in my other trainings, but this is just the first crash course run through for the first of my 3 different trainings. So some of her experiences, she witnessed domestic violence with her mother and father, physical abuse. She saw the physical abuse that he did to the mother, emotional abuse, neglect, witnessed the substance abuse, parentified, removed from home, and separated from her younger brother. I don't know about you all, but in the video, when she looks out the window right at the end and her brother is getting out of the car, it gets me every time. Because a lot of our students, maybe they don't have the experiences of the physical, emotional neglect, the substance abuse, but a lot of our students are having to be parents at very young ages. And honestly, the pandemic that we're all surviving through has only made that worse, because you have parents that have to work And unfortunately, schools are not safe. They're getting better for students to be there. So they are home and they are taking care of their younger siblings. And that in itself can be a traumatizing event because it is real or perceived. Okay. So let's talk about other forms of trauma. The first one is natural disasters. So these are things, hurricanes, fires, floods. We have human-caused disasters, accidents, wars, environmental disasters, acts of terrorism, community violence, robberies, shootings, assault, gang-related violence, hate crimes, group trauma affecting a particular community, school violence, threats, fights, school shootings, bullying, loss of a student or staff member, family trauma, abuse, neglect, experiencing or witnessing domestic violence, incarceration of family members, family substance abuse, sudden or expected loss of a loved one, refugee and immigrant trauma, exposure to war, political violence, torture, forced displacement, migration, and agricultural relation stressors and fears of deportation. We have medical trauma, which is pain, injury, and serious illness or invasive medical procedures or treatments. Poverty, lack of resources, support networks, or mobility, financial stressors, and homelessness. I will say from my research, I honestly feel like one of the most traumatizing things that our students are experiencing right now comes from poverty. There's a lot of research that states how poverty can affect different generational occurrences and that it doesn't just end. The effects last throughout the generations. So historical trauma is the cumulative emotional and psychological wounding across generations, including the lifespan, which emanates from massive group trauma. And some examples of historical trauma are, Kara, yes, I agree, unfortunately. Examples of historical trauma: American Indian and Alaskan Native communities, communities of color, Holocaust survivors, Japanese American survivors of internment camps, and LGBTQ communities. Racial trauma, potentially traumatic experiences resulting from direct experiences of racial harassment, witnessing racial violence toward others, and experiencing discrimination and institutional racism. For example, threats of harm, of injury, and or being humiliated, witnessing hate crimes or violence by law enforcement, racial microaggressions, brief, everyday verbal or behavioral exchanges that intentionally or unintentionally communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial messages or insults. For example, racial slurs, being followed in a store, exchanges that negate persons of color, thoughts, feelings, or experiential realities. Okay, and remember, the thing with trauma is that can be real or perceived. So it is up to the person that is experiencing these events as to whether it is traumatic or not. So an activity, if you have a piece of paper handy, you can do this. Otherwise, just think about it. I want you to draw a heart on a piece of paper or think about in your mind. And you're going to think of the first and last initials of a student that you've experienced anywhere throughout your life that has been exposed to trauma. Typically, in a perfect scenario, we would be together doing this. So I would say, please remember confidentiality here. But first and last initials of a student that has been exposed to trauma, and then write down any traumatic experiences or think about them that you are aware of that student has experienced. I'll give you just a couple seconds to do that. Because typically, whenever we start to talk about trauma or we watch these videos, students stick out in our minds. as educators, as people that are in the educational field, or that just work in a school system, we typically all have that nurturing attitude, that nurturing behavior, and we always tend to pick out those students that we know need a little extra love and attention. And so it's usually not hard to think about someone that has experienced trauma that we've encountered. So think about that student, and then keep them in the back of your mind for later on. So what about neglect? So neglect is failure to provide for a child's basic needs, can be perceived as traumatic by a young child who is completely dependent on the adults for care. It opens the door to other traumatic events, and it may interfere with a child's ability to recover from trauma. Do we have any questions so far? I know I'm going through this rather fast. No questions. Okay. Anybody else? We good? Good. Awesome. All right. So how common is trauma? Well, in 2017, 22,410 children were victims of abuse and neglect in Kentucky, a rate of 22.2 per 1,000 children, representing an increase of 12% from 2016. And this placed Kentucky second highest in the nation for 2016. And current research is still being developed, but unfortunately, I believe we have stayed the same or moved up on that list. Of these children, 95.1% were neglected, 6.8% were physically abused, and 3.8% were sexually abused. In 2017, there were 10 children deaths resulting from abuse and neglect reported in Kentucky. And in 2017, approximately 55,525 grandparents in Kentucky had the primary responsibility of caring for their grandchildren. In 2017, there were 110,532 referrals for child maltreatment. 56,240 were referred for investigation. 2017, 5,412 children in Kentucky lived apart from their families in out-of-home care, compared to 7,812 children in out-of-home care in 2016. Something that is alarming to me, and that what I worry, was right here in 2017, 110,532 referrals were made and 56,000 were investigated. Yes. Grandparents raising grandchildren is definitely very high in the state of Kentucky. And something that, and this is not to point blame or anything, but when you think that there's that many referrals that were not referred for investigation, for those of us that have or have not had to, make a referral, it could be that it simply wasn't filled out correctly, or maybe the right information wasn't given. And that could be a student that has slipped through the cracks. And that scares me. What also scares me now, while we are surviving through this pandemic, who do you all think are the people that make the most referrals for students? Yes, Kara. Yes, Camille. It's teachers, it's school staff, it's bus drivers, especially, with a bus driver, you see the home, you see that student every morning, you see that student every afternoon. So you're getting them in the morning, you're getting them when they're not really woken up all the way, and they're, how they act. And then you see them in the afternoon and how they act differently. So you begin to learn this pattern of this behavior for this child. And then if they are being neglected or they are experiencing trauma while at home, you can see that change, and you may be able to pick up on that and help that. With us not being in school, which is of no fault of our own, we're not seeing that. So the latest statistics that I have seen is that the referrals have been way down. And I honestly believe the reason is they haven't been in the schools. Teachers haven't been seeing their students every day. We know, for those of you that are teachers in here, and bus drivers and family resource center for sure, our students tell us things. They want somebody to talk to. They want constant people in their lives, and we're it for them. They see us every day. They learn our mannerisms. We learn if our personalities mesh or do not. And so they really trust in us, and they want to talk to us. And when we hear things that we know could be traumatic or need to be investigated, we're there to fill out those referrals. And unfortunately, if we're not seeing them and we're not talking with them, that becomes harder for us to do. So the stress continuum. Stress is a continuum, and it just keeps going. So there's normal stress. Everyone has this. It's getting to work late. You get stuck behind someone and you need to get somewhere where you need to be, and you're just kind of stressed about it. Okay, so that's normal. There's moderate stress, which are bigger stressors, which is like things like moving, going through a divorce, financial stress. None of these things are actually life-threatening. Extreme stress is traumatic stress, and this stress is life-threatening. And our students are experiencing these. So what is child traumatic stress? It refers to physical and emotional response of a child to threatening situation. So a traumatic event overwhelms a child's capacity to cope, and it may elicit feelings of terror, powerlessness, and out of control physiological arousal. So there are types of trauma exposure. There's acute, it is single event, and it is time limited. Okay. Chronic is multiple events. They may happen over time, and it is a cumulative effect. So, for example, if a child is being beat at home, if it happens multiple times, and it may happen a couple times in a month, and then it may go 2 or 3 months where they're not being abused, and then it may happen again. Those experiences are all lumped together. That's a cumulative effect. It's not treated as, the student was abused 1 month, but then, and that's in the past, let's focus on just now. It becomes a chronic stressor to where it is all cumulative and lumped together. Complex is an ongoing interpersonal trauma from a very young age. The people who should protect the child do not, for some reason. That can impair the development of appropriate attachment. It causes impaired ability to self-regulate, which results in persistent negative effect on the child's development and functioning. There has been research that has shown that with complex trauma, a student's development and maturity levels will actually stop at their age the traumatic event happened. I do know of a student that this is exactly the case of what happened. Everyone seemed to notice that he acted different. He didn't act like the other kids. His IQ, was fine. It was in average with everyone else. But just his behavior and the way he did things was not. And when that was looked into, it was, it all planned out. So complex trauma refers to exposure to multiple traumatic events from an early age and the immediate and long-term effects of those experiences over to the development. So attachment in relationships, physical health, emotional regulation, behavior, cognitions, self-concept, and future orientation. So we need to use a traumatic lens. So trauma exposure may result in a profound shift in a worldview. A child may lose trust in the world as a safe place, and they no longer trust that people are going to protect them. That's scary. When you stop and actually think about that, for a child to truly feel that no one cares about them and that they're not going to protect them if something's wrong, their amygdala is going to be constantly, where is the perceived threat? where is that threat coming from? Who is going to hurt me? I have to constantly be on guard the entire time. So while they're doing this, we're wanting to know, where is your pencil? Is your Chromebook charged? Okay. So using this traumatic lens will help us to better understand what they're going through, so that we are not making the situation worse for them. This shift can last long after trauma's passed. It can impact relationships and situations that are unconnected to the initial trauma. The trauma lens allows us to understand and recognize the role that the past and present trauma exposures may have in current behavior and functioning of that student. The trauma lens appreciates that trauma can cause a pervasive shift in the way the youth perceive and relate to every aspect of their world. Trauma and stress can truly change a student's whole outlook on themselves, on the world around them, on the people around them. It can truly change everything. So why does it matter? Well, what happens as children affects our physical, psychological, and social development and well-being, even into adulthood. So the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. Has anyone heard of the ACE study? Okay. Perfect. That makes me happy, Kara. Yes. So ACEs, this is a very short video to just kind of explain what they are, and then we'll talk about them a little more.
What would you do if you knew there was a way to help protect your family from future health problems, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, even alcoholism, drug abuse, and depression? The future sounds so far away, but to your children, every minute in their growing brain counts toward a healthier, more successful life. That's because positive experiences and environments help build stronger foundations for developing healthier brains. And healthier brains lead to greater emotional well-being, greater success in school, and brighter futures. Negative experiences like living in a house with verbal or physical abuse, sick or divorced parents, or emotional neglect create toxic stress that can hinder your child's brain development and lead to those unhealthy outcomes in the future we talked about. We've all heard of stress, but what makes stress toxic? When the weight from all those adverse childhood experiences we mentioned builds up, it can become too much to bear and affect how children look at the world. We call those experiences ACEs for short. Leaves you wondering why you've probably never heard of ACEs before. ACEs are common, but talking about them isn't. In fact, 2 out of 3 patients surveyed have at least one ACE, but they may not know how that ACE score is affecting them or their family. That's because a person with a high ACE score doesn't win. As the number of ACEs increases, so does the risk for negative health outcomes. A score of 5 or more on the ACE survey raises the chance of developing severe health concerns in adulthood to 55%. And those with 6 or more ACEs can die an average of 20 years earlier than those with no ACEs at all. Sounds scary, but the worst part? Parents with high ACE scores are more likely to raise children with high scores too. And it can lead to behavioral issues, school failure, and physical and mental problems. But even if you have a high ACE score, there's good news. Because now you know, and now you can change the direction of your life and help others in your family. The key? Well, as we mentioned earlier, ACEs are common, but talking about them isn't. Changing the conversation can help break the cycle and change lives. To start a new conversation, first take the ACE survey online. It's 10 easy questions that'll let you know if you or your family is at risk. Usually that's a score of 4 or more. Whether you score a 1 or a 10, tell your physician. And remember, a child's brain is...
Okay, so I would, I know the videos, sorry, I'm getting back to where I was. The videos suggest to go online and, take your ACE test and find out your score. And it is helpful. I've taken the ACE test. I would strongly urge as educators to not just Like, don't take this training back and then be like, okay, class, today we're going to take an ACE test. We're all going to find out our ACEs. And the reason why I say that we should not do that is because that in itself is a traumatic event. If you take, let's say, someone in here took the ACE exam and they find out that they have 7 ACEs, they're going to say, well, I'm doomed. Like, I should just give up now. Like, I'm going to have diabetes. I'm going to have heart disease. I'm going to have, all these things. And while research shows that, yes, that is more likely for them, it's not always the case. Okay. And the reason another research has been done, and it's your resiliency factor. So while your ACE score may be a 7, your resiliency score may be even higher, to where you are able to be resilient to those things that have caused the traumatic events to you in the past, to help cut down on the possibility of having these health conditions and things like that in the future. So my suggestion to you is that you personally, if you would like to take the ACE test, take that and then take your resiliency test as well. They both can be found online. You can just do a simple search and you'll find many of them. Okay, any questions about the ACE exam or anything that we've talked about so far? Okay. So how exposure to traumatic stress will manifest? Childhood trauma and other diagnoses, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, reactive attachment, bipolar, depression, anxiety. Wait, this is in the wrong view. Sorry. Has anyone ever experienced child with any of these disorders? Yes, we all have. My background as a special ed teacher, I've experienced these with all of my students. And some of my students have had all of them together. And I strongly believe if there was more research done, I think that this would even be proven. ADHD, ODD, that's the oppositional defiance, things like that. I believe that if you look at the root cause of those, I believe more than not, it would be from trauma. And I truly believe that. There are a lot of students that I've worked with all throughout my career in education, and people will say, well, that kid, there's something wrong with that kid. He is just wild. They don't listen, blah, 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 things like that. And then when you stop and think about it, talk to the student or you talk to the family and things like that, you can come up with they've had childhood trauma, and that trauma is affecting them now. Yeah, Kara, I do. I think a lot of times, and that, doctors and things like that will treat a student or a child for ADHD. I agree, Camille. They'll be, they may put them on medication for ADHD. Okay. Well, that will control that behavior in the classroom, but it doesn't stop why that behavior is occurring. Okay. I won't get on my soapbox, I promise. So some traumatic stress symptoms, intrusive symptoms. These are images, sensations, or memories of a traumatic event that recur uncontrollably. It can include nightmares, disturbing thoughts, flashbacks, physiological reactions, psychological distress. Okay, so these are things that happen and a kid can't help it. They just can't. It's their body's own reaction. So they may be sitting in class and you may be talking about, Dr. Seuss Week is coming up. Everyone loves Dr. Seuss Week. I'm a huge Dr. Seuss fan, but let's say that we are going over and we're going to talk about Hop on Pop. What may cause a student to have a flashback if we're reading the book Hop on Pop? And it's really just in the title. Yeah, memories of their dad. Maybe they've lost their father. Maybe their father has never been around. Maybe their father was abusive. So before the book is even read, when you say, today class, we're going to be reading Hop on Pop. Pop, dad, there goes their memory. Okay. And I'm not saying don't read those books. I'm just wanting everyone to understand that it could happen, and it may be appropriate. And I would say that it is to talk about, let's say they're reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Christmas is a wonderful time for many people. Huge Christmas person that I am. But it can also be a very sad time for a lot of people. So just talk about those experiences at first. Let those students know that, yes, Christmas is a great time, but for some people it's not. And I think that, to my experiences, conversation and communication is way better than like beforehand letting the student know instead of trying to deal with the situation afterwards. And if you know of a specific example, maybe, to put them together, maybe a student lost their father around Christmas time or lost their grandparent around Christmas time. That just doubles over on itself with a traumatic event. And if you know that, maybe pull that student aside where no one else, maybe it's at recess, maybe it's at lunch, maybe it's at breakfast, and just go in, the cafeteria, or we're in the classrooms now, and just kind of get, close to them and just say, hey, today I just want to let you know, this is what we're reading. I know, what has happened. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with still being in here? If you happen to need to get a drink of water while we happen to be reading the book, or I can send you on an errand to the library, things like that, to where the student doesn't feel singled out. They don't feel like you're, adding to their experience, but your understanding of it and your acknowledgement of it, that they are real, their experiences are real, and that you are wanting to be accommodating to them is super important. Yes, body safety. That is something that can have me get on my soapbox. Yes, and I love that. Hyperarousal and reactivity. Irritability or aggressive behavior, self-destructive, reckless behavior, the jumpiness or quick to startle, problems with concentration, sleep disturbance, and hypervigilance. Yes, Kara, we definitely, as your comments are coming in, I was like, okay, we need to talk. So hyperarousal and the reactivity symptoms, these are where they're on edge. Okay. They are very hypervigilant. They're waiting for where is that next attack coming from. And for even as teachers, when we say, I'm here for you, you have to think, well, how many times has that child heard, I'm here for you? And then 10 minutes later, after a few drinks, that same person that has said that is beating them. Okay. So while we are always trying to do our best, we have to keep in mind, like, still keep that distance from them, let them know, don't come up to a student behind them. If we know of experiences in their past, or also just as you walk up to a student, talk to them as you walk up instead of just coming up behind them. We may see the self-destructive, reckless behavior. That could be things like cutting, jumpiness or quick to startle. Problems with concentration is a big one. And a lot of times these symptoms will show up with problems with concentration, and the, parents or teachers may say, well, I think that they, have ADD or ADHD, they're just not able to pay attention. And it could be this and not because of something else. And also with a sleep disturbance, they're not getting their full sleep at night. And we all know how we feel. And imagine that for a child trying to process that really they're just tired. They can't do that. So negative alterations in cognition and mood, the inability to remember parts of a traumatic event, persistent negative emotions, persistent difficulty experiencing positive emotions. So even when things are going great, maybe they're at the zoo, they're on vacation, they're just not able to truly experience those positive emotions that come with a fun event like that. They have a decreased interest or participation in activities. They feel detached from others, persistent, exaggerated negative expectations, and then persistent, distorted blame of self or others. So there are instances where, like in the video, Zoe said, I'm unloved, I'm unlovable, I'm a nobody. Things like that is that distorted blame on themselves. And that can fall into the realm of learned helplessness, where they just feel that's it. You know, they're nothing, they're unlovable, and that's just how it is. Or students may also get into where they put the blame on everyone else. Everyone is responsible for what happened to them. Everyone else is, you know, the reason they do the things they do is based on everyone else. And there is no acceptance of that some things they do are their fault. And I think that's important with trauma trainings and in education, is to understand that we're not trying to baby or coddle these students. We're not saying that, you know, no discipline and every kid, you know, deserves a rainbow and a lollipop when they get in trouble. It's not that at all. It's acknowledgement. It's providing them resources that they need, and still holding them accountable. You know, when in the video, when Zoe threw the record player over the banister, should she have been reprimanded for that? Yeah, she should have been talked to. Should she have been put in the cold shower? No, that's where the line was drawn. And I think that we, as educators, need to understand that we're not, you know, this traumatic and trauma-informed classroom is not set up to baby or coddle any of our students. It is to help them, give them the resources they need in order to be successful. And it's just something we have to do. Avoidance symptoms, avoidance of internal reminders closely associated to traumatic events, thoughts, feelings, distressing memories, the avoidance of external reminders that arouse those distressing memories, thoughts or feelings associated with a traumatic event, people, places, conversation, activities, objects, situations, disassociation. This one for me is, it's scary. It is mentally separating the self from the experience. They may experience their self as detached from the body, as if they're on the ceiling or somewhere else in the room, and they may feel as if they're in a dream or an unreal state. So that is where their brain is actually giving that experience that they are separating from their own body. And I've had students that we've been talking through traumatic events, and they will talk about where when that trauma happened, when they think about it now, it's as if they are detached from their body. And it can be very scary. So one of the events from traumatic stressors and things that can cause is PTSD, which is a severe stress. PTSD can often be, the word itself can be thrown around a lot, because there's all different types of stressors. So this is a short clip. Has everyone seen American Sniper? Okay, well, I have not seen the movie either. This is a clip that shows PTSD. If you are going to use this around adolescents, I would definitely give them a lot of warning. And I do believe there may be a language. I tried to pick the one that didn't include it, but we shall see.
Babe. And I'm going outside.
you. It's your face again, babe. Looks good.
Oh, good.
Looks different. So the game's this Saturday. You know, he's the tallest kid on the team. Doctor said he could be 6'4". Isn't that insane? He's gonna make me see him play. I go so crazy though when the other kids jump on him, like I need you there with like a lever, you know? Or maybe you could even coach, you know? Kenna's gonna lose that tooth, and I'm so worried she's gonna swallow it, like in her sleep or something. And she said she'd let you pull it, but only you. Would you do that?
So I can't help it. I always cut that part short. But he does go on to beat the dog. So let's take this scene apart. In the very beginning, he's sitting in his chair, and he's hearing noises from a war. It was the war in Iraq. So he's hearing these sounds, and there's nothing there. And then while they're at the barbecue, what do you notice with him while his wife is talking to him? He's very, yes, it's that hyper arousal, okay? He is being very observant. He is looking for where is the next attack coming from. With the dog, why did the dog alarm him that there was a threat? Because the dog was just licking the kid. I mean, yes, it knocked him down, but all he was doing was licking the child. And we talked about this word from the very beginning of our training today. Perceived. That's it. He perceived that threat to be that dog was going to hurt the child. And so for him, that was a traumatic reminder of what he endured while serving in the military. Okay. So using the heart from earlier that we talked about, the student would now, or you would now write down any traumatic stress symptoms that student has experienced. Okay. So in a perfect world, when we are in person, we would do this, we would share out what the students have experienced and things that we've seen. So next, I'm going to talk about a loss reminder. Loss reminder, there's an empty situation. These are situations in which the person was supposed to be present, but it is not. So for example, following a school shooting, homeroom reminds youth of her friend who used to sit next to her and was shot. Okay. So that is an empty situation where someone was supposed to be there and now they're not. Shared activities such as playing games, going for a walk, making music, or making meals that the youth used to enjoy with someone who is now gone. Okay. So these are shared things that you used to do. And then now that person is no longer here, that is a reminder. And this could be for children. It could also be for adults. It could be that someone that recently passed away from you, maybe you two did something together a lot. And that was something that shared activity. Now that person is no longer here, that is going to be a reminder for you that person has passed away. Rituals, activities such as graduation, birthdays, holidays, school activities, family reunion, award ceremony, nightly prayers, and wedding celebrations. So these things can be very traumatic for students because these things are supposed to happen. Okay. You're supposed to, as a daughter, you're supposed to dance with your father at your wedding. It's a ritual. And when your father is not there, that can be a very traumatic experience, as also as a reminder to the loss that you have. And here is a short reminder. Has anyone watched If Anything Happens, I Love You? It's on Netflix. No. Okay, it's a short film. It's really good. This is a trailer for it. I'm not going to show the whole film. So we'll watch this and we'll talk about it. Okay, so in this short film, what actually happens, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, the daughter actually ends up, she dies in a school shooting. And so she is in the bathroom. When you saw the cell phone and it says, if anything happens, I love you, that is a message that she sent to her parents. And so more in the movie, you will see like the spaghetti. They remembered her daughter eating the spaghetti. That's a reminder. The part in the wall on their garage where the paint has been busted off is a lost reminder from their daughter. So it's all these things that people experience that can really make them think about the trauma and can bring it all back up. And it could be years and years gone by from that experience. And all it takes is one thing. So now, not to get too deep, but does anyone have something that is a lost reminder for them? If you want to share it, I would love for you to. If you don't want to share, you do not have to. But is there anything, maybe a song, maybe a scent, maybe a saying or a word? Song? Yes. No, it's not silly at all. Camille said her grandfather were really close and he owned Dairy Queen. So getting blizzards is a lot, and it's absolutely a lost reminder. And think about if one of your students had that same thing, and maybe you wanted to be, really nice and grab your kids all blizzards from Dairy Queen. That could be a lost reminder for one of your students as well. Yeah. I was thinking about you, Kara. Yeah. Yep. It's just, and it's not going to change. It's not going to go away. But our resiliency in ourselves and our grit is what is able to allow us to be able to move forward, whether that may be internally, it may be spiritually. We all have our own ways of coping with these things. But for some students, they just don't have those skills. So when traumatic distress becomes a disorder, this goes back to the adjustment disorder. Emotions or behaviors that surface in response to an identifiable stressor occurs within 3 months, which does not include normal bereavement. So there is a normal period of time where it is believed to be normal for you to be sad. For example, breakup of a romantic relationship, marital problems, persistent health issues. Those typically will occur within 3 months. It does not include that normal period time, though. Acute stress disorder It is the acute phase. It can only be considered from 3 days to 1 month following a traumatic event. So it's a risk factor for developing subsequent PTSD. However, not all individuals who meet the criteria for ASD will go on to develop PTSD. And many individuals who develop PTSD do not have an acute stress disorder first. So PTSD is diagnosed when symptoms occur for longer than 1 month. It can occur at any age beginning after the first year of life. And symptoms usually begin within the first 3 months after the traumatic event. However, some people do have a delayed onset or delayed expression of those symptoms. So an actual PTSD diagnosis, sometimes parents will say, well, he may have PTSD from these experiences that they've unfortunately experienced. What is best is to actually have a for sure diagnosis to know if that is truly post-traumatic stress disorder or not, so that we know how to help that student. So elements of a trauma sensitive system, our schools, how can we become more trauma sensitive? You must have safety, trust, empowerment, choice, collaboration, and cultural competency. Of these elements, there is one that many people would list as the most important. Does anyone know or want to guess, or maybe what you think? What is the most important element of a trauma-sensitive system for our students? Okay, this is not for teachers, it's for our students. Trust, okay? Safety, okay? What has been said that the most important element is choice. Because with choice, you are acknowledging that student. They feel safe because it's something they made. It's their choice. They have ownership. They have trust because they see that you are allowing them to make a decision. You are giving them power. And a lot of times with that power, whether it's perceived power or not, it makes them trust you more, okay? And then with that choice is the collaboration. It's empowering because it gives them that ownership. And then the cultural competency, when you're giving them that choice, you are acknowledging their different cultures and things like that to where they feel more empowered, okay? But they're all important. So bringing it back to the school. So how do we create a trauma-sensitive school? Trauma-sensitive schools has a shared understanding among all staff that trauma can impact the learning, behavior, and relationships at school. It has to be all staff. Everyone that interacts with a child in a school day should understand what a trauma-sensitive school is, how they can contribute to that being a trauma-sensitive school, okay? Trauma-sensitive schools use a trauma-responsive approach to helping students and staff feel physically, socially, emotionally, academically, will enhance academic competence, self-regulation, and physical and emotional well-being. So when students are able to feel safe, they're able to feel empowered, they're able to have choice, they're able to know that they are cared about, it will be able to help them enhance their academic abilities, being able to self-regulate and help their physical and emotional well-being while in school. So understanding challenging behaviors in school. There's a lot. So the challenging behaviors in school can be anger and aggression, disruptive, disrespectful, hostility, coldness, non-compliance, explosive behavior. They may have difficulty calming down after an anger outburst, problems with change and transition, acting guarded or anxious, extremely withdrawn or disengaged, rejecting support interactions from peers and adults, poor concentration, regressive behaviors, I have noticed many students that will exhibit regressive behavior. Could be like thumb sucking. It could be talking like a baby. It could be like temper tantrum, like maybe throwing themselves on the floor and actually kicking when they're, 12, 13, 14 years old. No motivation to learn or participate in activities. And this student right here, they're going to get labeled as they just don't care. Okay. How do you reach a student that just don't care? Well, you have to find out why they're acting as if they don't care. Okay. So we're almost at the end of this training for today. So is it the cognition behavioral triad? This to me, when I learned about this, I thought, okay, this is where everything's tying together for me as a teacher, because I had an idea of what trauma is, and I think all of you did as well. Before you ever logged in today, you knew what trauma was. But how does it affect a teacher? How does it affect me in my classroom as a bus driver? How does this affect me while driving the bus? Or, as being in family resource, how does this affect me and how I can help my students and my community and pair them together? So this cognition triad, first thing is the thoughts. So a student has thoughts, their cognitions, their ideas, beliefs, their values. Those are all of our thoughts. And what that does is that then goes into our feelings and emotions. So from our thoughts, we can feel happy, we can feel sad, fear, anger, disgust, surprise, and that will in turn go to our behaviors or our actions of what we're physically doing. And it does continue to cycle through. So let's say a student is at lunch and nobody sits with him. Okay. So his idea is going to be, nobody likes me. They don't want to sit with me. So then they are going to feel sad. They may feel fear, could be anger. They could be disgusted with who's around them. And then that's going to bring up a list of behaviors. So they could act out. They could not say a word. They could become just very silent. How many times have you experienced students where maybe they're in your classroom or in your office, they go out, and then when they come back, they're acting totally different? And something happened. I've noticed it, yes, too often for sure. The playground, when we would go out for recess and things like that, you're standing there, they're all playing. And then as you line up, you notice something's not right. Something happened on the playground, or something happened in the gym, something happened at lunch. Things just aren't the way they were when you last saw them. Okay. And I understand that for us, it's hard because, we have a very tight schedule, and I get it. They come back to us from lunch, you've got bathroom breaks, you've got things like that. Then you've got and you're going back into content, because from lunch to the end of the day is always a rush to get everything crammed in. But it's very important for us, while trying to have a trauma-informed school, to take that time and say, how are you? How are you feeling? Something I've done is using a Google form. Our counselors at my school do this as well. And it's just a check-in throughout the day. You can post an assignment in your classroom if you're using that. If not, you could have it on their desk while we're in person. And it could just be, it's just a visual reminder. How am I doing? And you could have, that's awesome, Camille. Yes. Yes, I love it. The check-in at their desk, there's tons of them you can print online, but one of them is just like a continuum, and it's like a smiley face and it goes down to a sad face. And so you just tell the students, okay, everybody, put your finger on how we're feeling, and then you kind of visually look around the room. There are some teachers that the kids are allowed to bring in like one small little figurine, and that figurine will just sit up on their desk with how they're feeling. So as you go out through the day, you're working with them on their work and things like that. You may go by a desk and you notice that a kid was really happy this morning, but now they're not too much. So you can just kind of talk to them about their work, but then also add in how, what is going on. Yes. Yeah. There's tons of check-in systems. Me now being a tech teacher, my mind goes straight to a Google form, but Post-it notes are great. Feelings charts, and just know your kids. I like seeing where students are allowed to bring in like the figurines to show where they are, because it gives them choice. They get to pick what toy they bring in. They get ownership because that's their toy. And also they're getting to bring a toy from home. Like for most kids, how cool is that? So that just helps them to tie everything in, and everyone's doing it. So no one's feeling left out or neglected. Awesome, Kara, thank you. Let me go on down. And that is actually where I'm going to stop. We are early. In my other trainings, yes. Thanks, Missy. Yes. The other trainings that I do, typically there are 3 sections. So this is the overview, and then it will go into the brain, like the actual brain makeup, the different parts of the brain, how things work. And then the last section is how to take all of these things and tie it in together. So whenever you're able to do that and tie it all in together, it will help to provide more for a trauma-informed classroom. I think that the overview is the best thing to start with, just because it gives that foundation and that background. Camille, I am going to. I haven't been. Typically, I do other trainings, but they're all on technology like Google Classroom, the Google Suite, all that kind of stuff. But I've just recently got into doing more trauma-informed presentations, specifically for the research that I'm doing for my doctoral program. But I will definitely have some more. I will put them out. I would love to be in the school system. I love it. Love it. That's awesome, Camille. I would love to be able to be in the classrooms. These trainings are, they're just better. They're just better in person. You're able to connect. The teachers are able to share things they've done in their classroom. Like I must brag on the school that I work in. We have a room. It is a full room. It was a computer lab, so it's big. And we call it the tab room or the take a break room. And that room is split up into different sections or different activities. So there's calm down corners, there's exercise equipment in one side, there is music, there's some beads, there's Play-Doh, there's all these different stations where a kid can go. And the way they get access to that room is they complete a Google form, and that Google form will go to our counselors, and our counselors will get that notification that they have a student that's needing that resource. And they will go to the classroom, they'll grab that student, they'll go down to the room, and they're able to spend 5, 6, 7 minutes in the room, taking a break, calming down, and then they go back to class. We're fortunate enough to have the room to do that. And I think it has worked wonderfully. A lot of people may, as a teacher, the first concern is, Kara, that would be awesome. I would love it. Is that, well, kids are going to abuse it. They're going to want to go down there all the time. And I can say from our experiences, we may have had 1 or 2 that did that. And all that takes is a good conversation about why it's not to be abused, and it didn't happen again. So I realize a lot of teachers don't have that ability, or schools, because we are so full. But you can have calm down corners in your classrooms. Of course, this is in a perfect world that doesn't have COVID and social distancing and things like that. So do we have any questions? And sorry, I'm sure you've been hearing my roosters as they walk around this morning. Okay, if you would, this video is going to be, it's all being recorded. It is going to be put out so that people in the district can watch it. And then they will be able to take the survey that I have posted in the chat. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Camille. I appreciate that. No problem. Awesome, Missy. I love it. So if you would, please fill out that survey. Please talk to people in your circles and let them know, like, hey, you can watch this PD and then complete the survey. This is vital. I mean, there's no other way to put it. This is vital to me for completing my program and actually defending my dissertation and getting my doctorate, is that I have to have so many participants take my survey. So it is posted in the chat. Yes, Kara, I definitely will. Let me post again. There is the link to the survey, and I will bring that up really quick. So you will go through the survey. It gives you the directions. So the first one just says, number one, I was familiar with the symptoms traumatized students display. So the way you do that is you answer before the training and then after the training. So you're actually answering for 2 on each one. Does that make sense? Everybody good on that? I want to make sure. I'm not going to go through with any of the others. Okay, Missy. All right, good. So once you're finished, you submit. Awesome, thank you. It is totally confidential. It is not collecting your email addresses. The only thing at the end, I believe it will ask your age and things like it's. There's nothing that's identifiable as far as who took the survey. So with that, I'm going to close. Is there any further questions at all for me? Okay. You're very welcome. If you have questions, yes, Camille, I will send that information out to you. I'll have where you registered for this training and I'll email it out again. The way I worked through it this time was I talked with Dr. Martin and then I went through each of the school principals to get that information out as well. Okay. So if you do have any further questions, please email me, let me know, and I will do everything I can to get you the information that you need. If you're interested in taking the ACE and Resiliency Survey, I can send you those links as well. Missy, yes, I will. I will. Yes, I will. All right. So we're ending about 30 minutes early. That's quite all right. So everyone have a great Saturday. And I truly do thank each and every one of you for attending and for completing my survey. It really means a lot. So I thank you, and you all have a great Saturday. See ya.